Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rose Report. Tonight, I'm joined by political candidate Brian Clowdus, who's running for District 6 in the Florida House of Representatives. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to have you on for a couple of reasons, mainly because Florida is such an important state right now. There's so much new talent in the Republican side coming out of Florida. It's always in the news. But just to start off on your personal note, why did you decide to run for political office, especially when Republicans are being so persecuted right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me this would be my chapter or this would be my path a few years ago, I would have said you had absolutely lost your marbles. I was not political until President Trump came along. I work in the theater industry, quite possibly one of the most liberal, woke industries ever. I was canceled, brutally canceled, before I even got very vocal about my politics. At the height of BLM and George Floyd, I had a past employee come after me very publicly, claiming that I was this awful racist human. And I refused to apologize because it was not true. You had people across my industry and really every industry in the country begging for forgiveness about, white privilege and microaggressions. And I just said, this is absolute bullcrap. I'm not apologizing for something that I know in my heart is not true. And it was really a catalyst for me fighting this woke cancel culture. And I said, okay, I have two decisions to make. I can choose to bow down to the mob, beg for forgiveness. It would have been the easier path by far. Or I can choose to make this an opportunity to get vocal about my beliefs in politics. I chose option B and, came out as a America First Republican. And that's when the what really hit the fan. And it just gave me fuel to get more and more vocal and involved. I got really involved with the local Republican Party here in my community and was basically a full-time volunteer for 3 months for the Trump Victory team here in Bay County. That's my area here in Florida. And every person's door I knocked on said, we're sick of career politicians. We're sick of the good old boy system. We're sick of the elite. And people started then saying, have you ever thought about running for office? And I said, Lord, no, gross. I'm not a politician. No desire to do that. And people said, you should think about it. You're a workhorse. You have passion, you have heart for the community. And when I realized that this seat was coming available, the person it was terming out, I looked at everything that had happened to me in the past year and it just all clicked. I prayed about it. I talked to my family and I said, everything that I've gone through was leading me to this point to run for office. So, and here we sit, 2 weeks before Election Day.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point because we do have quite a few volunteers now becoming the candidates. And that's sort of a changeover because we've always had political consultants becoming candidates, but there are people who were door knockers, who were out there putting up signs in the last election cycle, who saw the gap in the primary fields. And as a candidate in Florida, what has that experience been like working with the GOP system there and working with conservative organizations?
I mean, it has been an incredible journey. I'm not the handpicked candidate. No one was like, you are now the one to run. We have a good old boy system in place in our community, but the Republican Party, I think across the country and really in Bay County is going through a metamorphosis. I think there is the new Republican Party. That's the part that I am, the big tent party, the party that doesn't rely on identity politics, the party that says, if you love your country and you want to fight, come hang out with us. And then you've got the old school, what I call kind of like Bush era Republicans who are just clenching onto something that is bound and determined to change. So the Republican Party here has really embraced me because they saw me as that guy who worked his tail off in the Trump campaign, not the guy who came in with any personal motives to run for office. So the Republican Party is really behind me here, but our Republican Party has some of the old school people and the really, I call it the sort of like elitist section of our party. They are hanging on for dear life and they are petrified because they see how many people are excited about the new Republican Party and candidates like me who have never run before. So, I have tons of grassroots movement, tons of volunteers, and we are making waves in the community, just like you're seeing all across the country. So for me, it's a thrilling time to be an America First Republican.
And as a member of the Republican Party who is in sort of the non-neocon area, when you go to talk to voters in Florida, what are the issues that they're talking about? Because we know the failures of the Biden administration, but I think maybe Republicans are a little too centered on the failures and not asking themselves specifically what the Republican voters want.
Yeah, most voters are really concerned about things that are actually nonpartisan issues. The most issues really root to affordability, quality of life. Of course, we talk about, Biden's a train wreck, and we can't, we can't believe the direction that our country is going. But, we're really fortunate here in Florida to have an incredible governor who is really fighting for our freedoms. But the majority of actual concerns that affect our immediate community are affordability. Florida is becoming hard to afford to live here, affordability of rent, mortgage. Florida Power and Light has a disgusting monopoly here. Our property insurance rates are flying out the roof. Unfortunately, a lot of times the big developers take a front seat, and tourism takes a front seat to the environment and to residents. So from day one, I've said I want to put the residents and the environment as our top priority. And, a lot of people don't like talking about the environment, but, for me, conservatism and conservation are really the same word. I'm not talking about crazy PETA, can't eat a hamburger, all that bull crap. I'm talking about most people live in Florida because of the incredible environment here. We have oceans, we have incredible water systems, we have the Everglades, forestry. And when development comes in and starts just not even caring about that, that's when we start having a lot of these infrastructure issues. We have major flooding issues in our community. And a lot of that roots to there's concrete in areas that concrete is not meant to be in. And I'm talking about, I'm not going, because my whole campaign strategy was door knocking. We've hit 18,500 doors, and that is a record for our community. It's never been done. And I knock in the rural areas, the areas that typically get zero love, because I always root for the people that are not getting love and support. And I have knocked on people's homes that are surrounded by sandbags. They have to live with sandbags around their homes because flooding issues have become, it's really affecting their quality of life. So, those are the main things really affecting locals. But, of course, we talk about, abortion, we talk about gun rights, we talk about the Parental Rights Act. We're talking about those as well. But at the end of the day, when people can't afford to live, that becomes your top priority.
Right. And it's interesting you bring up conservation, because in a state like Florida, you have the issue of pollution. You have to make sure that you have a natural environment that will attract more tourism. Do you think that that's something that Republican candidates, especially at the local level running for state Senate or state House races, is that something that they are maybe underestimating the level of importance to voters because they're on the Republican side?
Yes, I think Republicans don't like to talk about the environment. There are environmental issues. I don't think that, we're about to break off, and I don't think there's this like insane stuff happening. And I think unfortunately, environmentalist and conservation gets a bad name because you have nutbag Greta over there saying the world's about to end. And unfortunately, I think those extremists really polarize a lot of people from these conversations. But for us locally, these root back to development, no strategy or vision of the way that things are being built. And when you cut down a ton of trees, there's nowhere for the water to go. These are it's just reality, So I think we need to get these conversations at the forefront of the Republican Party and really redefine, what it means to put the environment first, because I think you can talk about environmental issues without sounding like a far left nutbag.
That's true. And that's something, especially young conservatives have been trying to champion going forward, pushing the fact that pollution in Michigan or Florida, conservation, it is something Republicans can win on. And I wanted to ask, because you have been door knocking and you've been on the ground, what is the model in your mind for a successful local campaign look like? What is the things people have to pay attention to? Is it on the ground services? Is it social media? Is it a combination? What's the system there?
So I'll tell you about the old school system, and then I'll tell you about what I do and what we're seeing success with. The old school model here, and I think in a lot of communities, puts the focus on fundraising because candidates are lazy. They don't want to work and they just want to raise a ton of money and do media buyouts. That's easy, right? Especially if you're elite and you're part of like the hand-picked crowd. You call your friends, you get them to write max checks at $1,000, and then you've got several $100,000, and you hire a team that just does all the work for you. Typically in my area, these hand-picked candidates have not been challenged. From day one, I knew I would never raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. I just knew it, nor did I want it to be my focus. And especially as someone who's so new to politics, I knew that everything I did, I wanted to be centered around the people because I knew people in our area had not been listened to in the past. And just, I look at this as almost like a business. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm self-made, I'm used to starting businesses from the ground up. So I've looked at this campaign as a startup company, and you basically do better what your competitor's not doing at all. And I knew my opponent would not knock doors. I knew my opponent would not be out in the field, doing lots of events. So for me, it was all about direct voter contact, talking to as many voters as possible on their doorsteps, being very active on social media. I am fortunate. I have a large following on social media, and making sure I reply to every single comment, every single message, return every call, every email, and really redefine or really get back to the roots of what these roles are meant to be. These are public service positions. These are not these big fancy leadership roles. And, in Tallahassee, our capital, the lobbyists and big corporations, they run the roost. And for me, I've been very outspoken about the fact that I've taken $0 from lobbyists. I've taken $0 from big corporations. I mean, not that they were offering anyway, because, they saw that I was going to be a very, very different candidate. But I wanted to be freed up to unapologetically fight for the people. And when you're taking tons of dollars from these lobbying firms and from these corporations, they come with strings. I don't care if you say they don't come with strings. I'm not beholden to anyone. They do. So I'm sorry, I don't see how you can take an exorbitant amount of money from Florida Power and Light and say, hey, this is not right that people can't afford their power bills. So I'm going to be in a really unique position to fight for the people,
Yeah. And I think that that's something a lot of startup campaigns maybe underestimate, is the fact that if they do win, they then have to be beholden to the people who got them there. And for someone like you, you're beholden to the people who voted for you, which is perfectly fine, which is how it should be. But if you're beholden to a large corporation, that's going to hurt you in the long run. And you mentioned that going into rural areas to door knock and to talk to those voters. For a long time, I think the Republican Party has underestimated how much we need to improve our own turnout amongst our own voters. Is that something that you've seen there, that there was a lack of engaging with people who are already Republicans and you need to step that up in your area?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Republicans, or just people in general, I think really get excited about a presidential campaign. But I think, it's hard to get people to show up for the primary. But we have been focused specifically on targeting voters that show up in the primary, so we're trying to win them over. But I've done tons and tons of public events that have mass turnout. So any like Mardi Gras, 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day, anywhere I can have a booth, I'm going to have a booth, because when people meet me and engage with me, they can see how unique I am. I'm not your typical politician, you know?
Right.
And that fuels me when I get to talk to people and understand what's important to them. And, people's like, oh, what's your stump speech? And I say, it's just saying, hey, my name is Brian. What's important to you? That's literally my stump speech. And people are so taken back because they say, no one's ever asked me that. And I say, well, then we've got some really crappy politicians here.
Yeah.
We need to have public servants. And you've got to get people excited. I mean, people have full lives. People have jobs, marriages, children. You've got to get them excited to get engaged. And I think that's what Trump did so brilliantly. He brought an element of entertainment to his politics, and people were excited because it was fun. So for me, I try to make all of my events fun. And the amount of volunteers we have has been incredible because they're having fun. So I said, if you're not having fun, why the heck are you doing it? So we've got to make politics fun again, and we've got to give people reasons to get engaged.
I think that's true. There has been a lack of entertainment in politics in the last election cycle as well. Things got a little bit too dry, a little too serious, and Republicans throughout the country have tried to step that up. Just sort of in closing, what is your pitch for why voters need to vote in these primaries and need to get out there no matter where they are in the country? Why does it matter so much to go out and vote for Republicans at any level throughout the primary system in the US?
It is so important. I mean, look at what is happening to our country. Look at what happened yesterday. I mean, the fact that, it gives me chills just thinking about it. I mean, it's scary times we're living in that a past president's residence would be invaded by the FBI just over politics. I mean, there are two sets of rules in our country. It is terrifying. I never thought I would see America go in this direction. But there is power in numbers. And if we get more people in office at every level, county, city, school board, state level, federal, we have to get real people in office who are not part of the political machine, people who are not afraid to stand up and do the right thing. I mean, it's we the people. We the people have got to be in control. And if we don't have the right leadership in place that is here to serve, we're in grave danger. So now more than any time, vote in every single election you can. Every position is so vitally important.
I think that's true, especially because we have to participate in the metamorphosis of the Republican Party. If you're on one side or the other, you have to vote for the candidates you want so that their side will win. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people follow you on social media to keep up with you and your campaign?
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter. It's just my name, Brian Clowdus, BrianClowdus, and you can find all my campaign info on there as well.
Perfect. And we'll link all that below. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.